Hi, my lovelies. This is Linda from the 22TANGO show, and I wanted to talk with you about how to handle loss during this global pandemic. So, I'm not even going to get on here and pretend that it does not feel like things are just going out of control. There are those of us who are not unfamiliar with feeling like your life is kind of out of control. It's quite another thing when you feel like the world is literally out of control. And so I understand that this is a time, and on the eve of the 10-year anniversary of the 22 Tango show, I've been really kind of in prayer about how to kind of add value to you all during this time. I've experienced as a tango and dance instructor for many, many years, but I also have experience in emergency, many of you may not know, in emergency preparedness and kind of municipal operations. And so, I do have some experience in those areas. And so it's really, really hard not to, excuse me, see where I'm standing, hard not to kind of get into that here. But I just wanted to talk to you about, just kind of acknowledging some things. For many people, they are experiencing a lot of loss. So I know that there are some people that are getting their hustle on during this time and learning new skills and starting new businesses and all this other stuff, and starting new projects. And I just want you to know that if you are not in that vein, that it's okay. You may be experiencing a lot of loss right now. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of loss, and this is one of those rare times where I'm actually having kind of some notes that I've written down. All of us are experiencing a loss of life as we know it, and I know everyone's asking the question of when will life get back to normal. I think we'll get back to normal, but I believe it'll be a new normal. I don't believe that we will be going back to business as usual. Too much will have changed, and so the loss of life as we know it, the normal that we used to have, I know is something that a lot of people are dealing with. For many people, they're experiencing a loss of stability, whether that stability is in their job and in their income, in their routine, or even for some people, their lifestyle and their home, even, as some people have had to change. Some people have had, once again, a loss of job, a loss of income, a loss of lifestyle and status, a loss of their role and identity. A lot of people receive and get a lot of sense of themselves out of the identity that they have or the roles that they play. And for many people that have lost their jobs or have been furloughed or laid off or kind of put on pause, they're experiencing, kind of the loss of that. We're all experiencing, or at least here in North Carolina, a loss of movement and freedom, and even a loss of some space. Some people are being forced to be sequestered or quarantined or stayed in place or sheltered in place, depending on the language of where you are, at home, either alone or with their family and loved ones, children, and etc., in a way that they may not have had before. Many people, their rhythm and routine has been disruptive, so they've kind of experienced a loss of rhythm and routine. Some people have experienced a loss of health in this crisis, and even others have lost loved ones, whether they were in their immediate family or extended family or friends or colleagues. They've lost people to this pandemic. Some people have lost their social circle because we're in a place where we're social distancing, and so they may not be able to connect with their family and friends and their social circle in the way that they used to. Some activities, as a dancer and especially one who does partner dance, I know what that loss feels like. Your loss of your involvement in special causes and organizations, churches that you may have been involved in, a loss of peace, and definitely a sense of loss of control, because there are things that we may be used to being in control of, but we've lost. So that's a lot of losses. Many of us have lost all of those things all at the same time. And I just want to acknowledge when you're experiencing physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual losses, a tool that I think might be useful is for, if you have an opportunity to go online, which is to look at the grief wheel. Anytime you've experienced loss, there is a kind of process of a natural typical traditional way of dealing with loss, and especially multiple losses, is acknowledging that when we've lost something, that we often go through the phases of grieving the loss of that thing, those people, or those situations, or multiple things. And so if you get a chance to go through the grief wheel, then you can kind of become at the very least at ease with all the emotions that you might be going through at this time, as you experience kind of this loss during this season, and especially this first phase. So if you're feeling like you're not getting anything done or accomplished, it's okay, because you are probably in one phase or are going between the phases of this grief wheel. I'm going to rattle them off, but you might want to look online for the grief wheel. You can just put it in Google and it'll give it to you, kind of the phases of grief that are acknowledged by a number of counselors are loss, shock, and then protest, and sometimes between shock and protest, deterioration. From protest to disorganization, from disorganization to reorganization, and then from reorganization to recovery. And the time for going through the different phases of grief is going to vary for different people. Obviously, number one, in terms of how they handle grief, but also how many types of grief. And so many of us are experiencing multiple types of loss in a place where we really, truly, truly feel like we have a loss of control. The thing that I would like to offer is, number one, acknowledge that you are going through grief, and be gentle with yourself and your loved ones as you deal with anxiety and grief during this time. Being a relationship show, the one thing that this is underscored for me is that all we have is each other, and the importance of relationship during this time, your relationship with God, or higher power, your relationship with yourself, and really being really grounded and rooted in who you are, and your relationship with your intimate partner, your spouse, and your relationship with your children, your family, and your loved ones really is the centerpiece of our lives now. For many people that they've lost their job, their income, and I know that that is very, very stressful to not know, how are you going to provide for your family, how are you going to have enough money to eat, how we're going to do this now and moving forward, all these uncertainties. But from a day in, day out, really what we have is each other. We can only do this one day at a time. And so I'm hoping that this is an opportunity for you to really have a new insight and appreciation for your loved ones. Some people don't have that anymore. Some people are losing it moment by moment. So really, even though that might be frustrating to be right on top of each other, really, I hope that you see the blessing in all of it all. Some people, because of the social distancing, are at home alone for hours and days and weeks, and not getting to see anybody face to face, not to get to physically touch someone, not getting a chance to hug someone. So really, if you have that in your life right now, really consider yourself blessed. Use this time to really count your blessings, and I think people are all going through now. We've gotten through the first two phases, and it's anchored in, and we reel, and some states are going to be sequestered another 4 to 6 weeks at least. Is really an opportunity to kind of self-reflect and reprioritize, and of course, do what you have to do to keep yourself healthy and safe, keep your family fed, those kinds of things. But then also really take time to pause and really kind of get anchored and find a peace in kind of the things that you do have, maybe things that you take for granted. And I pray that during this season that we don't take them for granted. So I just really wanted to jump on here and offer that to you all as a resource. I know that there's a lot going on the internet, but just acknowledge that with loss comes grief, and that you can be patient and understanding and gentle with yourself and your loved ones, especially children who really don't understand what's going on in terms of the world. So love you guys. Be safe here, and take care of yourself. I love you. Love on those who are around you. And of course, as we say on the 22 Tango show, it not only takes two to tango, but of course, it takes you to tango. Ciao.